Hello and welcome to Designing a Successful Large Group Physical Education Program. My name is Dave Carney. I teach grades kindergarten through fifth grade, phys ed, and this is the first lesson, part one, the basics. Okay, so in order to do this, we need to take everything in about the basics. So the first thing is space. Okay, we'll get into detail of all these things as we go. Equipment, time, and size of your classes. So I call that sets. Space, equipment, time, size. So number one is space. And no, we're not talking about outer space, but the space you have in your classroom, in your program. So this includes everything you have, everything that's available to you. Your field, if you have one, courts, playground, pavilion, inside space, anything you have, take it all in, see what you have, and ask yourself, will you ever lose that space? During rainy days, testing, special occasions, I know I do. I'm outside. We have a pavilion. If it rains or there's lightning, or they're testing nearby in the classrooms, we have to move. And so these are all things that you need to take into consideration. How much storage space you have. We have a pretty big storage unit next to my office, but that's all a factor of your space. And like I said, your office area. Do you have space for your paras, if you have any? Do you have space for all your computers, your books, anything you need, your desk? Some people it's more cramped. I actually have a decent amount of space, and I actually had room to put a few computers in here for students to come in. So these are all things to think about. Okay, your physical space. So what I like to do is take a picture of it, Google Maps or whatever, take a picture of it, label it, decide, again, what is yours, map it out. And what I like to do is actually write out the games for each space. So what I'll do is, in this diagram, it shows my field, pavilion, my basketball courts. Sometimes we have access to the playground, not a lot, but sometimes. And so I'll map it out on a piece of paper. I'll say, okay, in the field, these are the games we could play out there, or these are the units we could hold out there. Okay, under the pavilion, these are the games we could play. On the basketball courts, these are the games we could play, because I have 5 to 6 classes, actually sometimes more at a time. And so I need to understand what I could play and where, because that'll be a big factor in what I'm going to do and what units I'm going to hold at the same time. And as always, protect your space. This is your space. This is not recess space. Make sure you talk to your administration about that, because that is very important. Protect your space. So number 2 is equipment. And what equipment do you need? What equipment do you have? What do you need? How do you get it? These are all what we're going to talk about number 2. Okay, the first step is inventory what you have. When I first started working here, I just made a list of everything. Here's what I have. Here's how many basketballs I have. Here's how many gator skin balls I have. Here's how many jump ropes I have. Everything. Inventory it. Okay, decide what is necessary and in good condition. This is something I do at the beginning and at the end of the year. If I haven't used something in 5 years or 6 years, I'm probably not going to use it. I keep saying, I'm going to use this thing, I'm going to use it. I either do it or I don't. I either get rid of it or I'm going to use it, right in the beginning of the school year, because if I just keep leaving it there, I'll never use it. And if it's not in good condition, the rule in my county or my district is I can throw it out. I know some people have to actually document it, or they have to, I don't even know, show administration. If I have a basketball that won't hold up, it's just horrible, I can throw it out. But decide what is necessary and in good condition. And throw out the junk. Again, I like to keep stuff. I like to be a hoarder sometimes. I've gotten better at this. Just get rid of it. Okay, so what is your yearly budget? That's another big factor. Like, what do you have? Some people say they have nothing, and I believe them. I have $800 a year. I used to have $900. That is my budget for the year. And it sounds like a lot, but it is not. And I know as a PE teacher, as a phys ed teacher, you know that $800 is not a lot of money. But I have to make that stretch out and get a plan. My wants versus needs. I have a lot of wants. There's a lot of cool things I see online. There's a lot of cool things I see in the magazines. but it's not just what I want, it's what I need. I'm trying to get the biggest bang for my buck, because I have 1,200 kids, 1,200 students, and I have anywhere between 4 and 6 classes at a time this year. I need to make it last. So who do you buy from? This is a big question I see online all the time. Who do you buy from? Okay, the first thing is to ask around, get on social media, ask who the best places, or the best vendors are. I've had some really good experiences with, I'd say definitely 2 that I like to use, and this could change in the future, but there's a couple that I just flat out refuse to use. As really one that just the customer service was not good to me, and I decided I'm done with them. So ask around and do some comparison shopping. Sometimes things are the exact same thing is cheaper in one catalog than the other, but I would go more on building the relationships and going from there. So find a good company or 2 and go with them. We get catalogs. I get catalogs all the time, and so I try to stick with the people I know, the people that take care of me. If I have a problem, there's no questions asked. They'll take it back. They'll replace it. They'll give me credit, whatever. And that's when I say develop the relationships. So the 2 companies I'm thinking of, I have good relationships with them. Again, if I call them up and say, hey, this these sharks or these fish won't stay inflated, they'll send me new ones, things like that. There's actually more than 2. There's lots of good companies out there, but there's a few that I just don't want to deal with. And like I said, the best customer service and prices, I don't mind paying a tiny bit more if I'm going to get great customer service. And also some of them help me with grant writing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So if they help me with grant writing and they have good customer service, the extra 50 cents or whatever, extra couple bucks, to me, it's worth it. I hear this a lot. I need money for PE. But I have good news. And by the way, that's Webster, or Webster Famous. That's one of our mascots this year. So we're going to talk about grant writing in depth a little more, but definitely writing grants. We've raised over $25,000 for our school writing grants, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. We do hold spirit nights. Last year, we raised $460 just from getting the local hockey team in here and promoting it. And at the local arena where they play, there was a spirit night there. We raised that money, went all to PE. We have other fundraiser nights at different places that goes to our PTO, and then they give us some of the things we need also at PE. Community support, if there are times when I could just put things out to my Facebook group. It's a community Facebook group for PE, and they might come through for you. You never know. Yeah, my biggest thing is getting creative. What I like to do is look at what's going on and how I can use the equipment I have to play the games that I want to play. You don't always need the $500 rebounders for Chook Ball. You can figure something out. As a matter of fact, speaking of Chook Ball, we got our rebounders from I think Sports Authority before they went out of business, and it was actually a couple of years before they went out of business. But my para went down there and negotiated a deal. We bought 4 of them for I think $50 each, but they were normally $60, $70 each. You can negotiate, get creative, and that's the way to go. And I have a podcast on this. If you want to listen to it, it's Beg, Borrow, and Steal. So I beg my administration sometimes. That's how I got cup stacking. Beg my PTO for things. Borrow things from other people in your community or other teachers. And steal ideas. I know it sounds horrible. I don't actually steal things, but I steal ideas from other games, other people online. And grant writing, yes, the big one. Okay, the first thing is decide what you need. We've written grants for lots of different things. Technology-wise, we did a First Tee grant, so we got free golf club and accessories, golf clubs, and we've written grants for Dance Dance Revolution and heart rate monitors, pedometers, the rail yard system, everything, you name it. So find a place that accepts grants. So we have a foundation that works with our community or our district. You might not have that, but you need to look around. There are people willing to donate. Okay, the key to grant writing is make it interesting. Get a catchy name, catchy title, catchy things you're doing with it. Get creative. Turn it into a project. So it's not only like, hey, I need some iPads. Why? I don't know. Just because I want to give my kids iPads. There has to be a reason behind it. Turn it into a project, a learning project, and provide data to back it up. Say you're going to increase their reading scores. You're going to increase math scores. Okay, work on that aspect, and you'll definitely get considered for the grant. So time. Now, how much time do you have per class? So you want to utilize your class time to the best you can. How long do you see each class? So I see them this year 45 minutes. Most of my career here, it's been 40 minutes. How many days per week do you see them? I've some people on social media see their kids once every week. I see my students at least 3 times a week during the perfect storm week, sometimes 4. So that's a lot. And how much time between classes? And this is the big one for me this year. I have 0 time between classes. It was 5, then it was 3, and now it's 0. So I got to get 130 kids in and 130 kids out as fast and as efficient as I can. So that's something to think about. And when is your planning time or setup time? I have setup in the morning, and then I have parent drop-off, and then I have about 40 minutes this year of planning time. So that's when I can work on I'll make a list of things I need to do, and I will make sure I get in there and make sure I set things up, and I'm ready for the first set of classes. So you want to structure each class. How do they come in? Okay, have a set way of them coming in. What do they do right away, right off the bat? In mine, they come in and sit on a dot, and then as soon as, not as soon as everybody's sitting because they'll take too long, but as soon as we're ready, as soon as most of the kids are in, we just go, and we start with our warm-up the first 5 minutes or so. We do a dance exercise, kind of song or two, or a montage I make, and then they sit down on their dots, and I might ask them a quick question, a turn and talk, and then we go to our stations. And this is, again, we break into stations. Maybe not the first week of school or first 2 weeks of school with certain groups, especially kindergarten, but we'll break off into stations that our paras will take them to. And what do you do the last 5 to 10 minutes? That's actually the hardest time for us. We bring them under, they get drinks, sometimes we do a stretch, like a little cool down, but it's hard because, again, there's 130 kids. We're trying to get drinks, we're trying to keep it relatively quiet and not as crazy, and that's my biggest challenge right there, and I need to work on that, and I know that's one of the things I need to work on the most. And how do they leave? Like which direction do they leave from? If you have one door, well, you know what it is. I have a pavilion, so which way are they coming in? Which way are they leaving? And the size of your class. I wish it was this small. So how big are your classes? What is your average class size? Again, mine is between 100 and 130. So I need to plan for that. But equipment-wise, I need to plan, my games accordingly, if I can use the pavilion or not based on the size. How many classes at a time? Again, I have 5. Actually, the older kids are 4 this year, which is great. But sometimes it's more. And I want you to think about how can you utilize stations or paras to divide and conquer, which I call my zone defense. So I will take 2 classes by myself or a class, depending on what we're doing. I'll have a big game, usually in the field, where it'll be maybe 2 to 3 classes, but 2 coaches. And then somewhere else with maybe the basketball court with a class or 2. It just depends on what we're doing. But I want you to think about that and think about the units you're going to be doing. And yes, this will be helpful during the planning stage. So when we get to that part, we will talk about the different zone defenses and what you can do with that.